I guess now might be a good a time as good a time as any to mention the next thing, which is yet another tirade from me against the sort of mainstream corporate types of media outlets. Obviously, Fox News being the most guilty because they just put it on full display, but other news outlets also being guilty of this, which is they sort of have a bias towards fascism and away from socialism. At least all of them except MSNBC maybe is the most charitable I could be to any of those main television news outlets, really. But yes, and the reason I say this is not so much because of what the mainstream news outlets do report, but what they don't report, and also how they frame the economic issues that they do report very frequently, with some exceptions, of course. Usually, the written news journals in America are much better than the TV news, and the daytime or outside of prime time is a little bit more mundane and maybe has a little bit better coverage than prime time. But very frequently, what I've noticed is there is a tendency to have an implicit anti-union and anti-worker bias. Sometimes protesters will block the road for something, which is valid. That's a valid means of protest. But the news outlets will hyperfixate on the fact that the road is blocked rather than that the workers are being treated in subpar working conditions. But yes, the other thing is the stories that they do catch and kill on. If what that means is that a media outlet obtains the rights to a given story, right? So they could run it as an exclusive on their site, and then they intentionally don't write a piece on it. This has happened a number of times with corruption-related stories, I think. Usually smaller scale, but because the bigger scale stuff tends to get out really quickly, and it would look really bad if you tried to do catch and kill and failed on a really big corruption story. Even though most corruption in the United States is legal, it's perfectly, within the boundaries of the rules to engage in corrupt politics in the U.S. But yeah, and that's a inevitable result, I think, of privately owned news journals in a capitalist market where a lot of big donors are using private money to prop up the news outlets, as opposed to what would happen in a market socialist world, where or even just any type of socialism, where you could have news outlets that are just supported by government money and are operated independently, like public broadcasting. PBS does this. The biggest thing for me about pro-corporate bias in media is that I haven't really seen any of the major news outlets talking about on primetime television how the Republican Party's new platform is they just want to eliminate Social Security and Medicare as spending that happens every year. Rick Scott, I think, was the originator of this plan, and their idea is, hey, why don't we get rid of Social Security and Medicare, not by getting rid of it, but making it so that every 5 years it gets put up for a vote, so that if the first time the Republicans have a majority voting bloc in Congress, in that every 5-year cycle, we get to just vote down Social Security and Medicare entirely as concepts, and then you eliminate the last remnants of the American welfare state. Which would result in probably millions and upon millions of people going into poverty and tens of thousands of deaths per year. Generally, it would not be good. It would really not be good, I think.